Hi guys, I'm Nicholas Wallwork, globally published author of Investing in International Real Estate for Dummies. Go and check it out on Amazon. Got loads of property investment strategies in there, property development, JVs, financing, you name it, it's in there. Great book. We'll get you a load of free education, well, free 15 quid education, whatever it is selling for on Amazon. Go and check it out. Better than £1,000 courses out there. We are launching some exciting courses soon. Watch out for that in the links in the video below. Also mentor people on a one-to-one basis, but forget all of that for now. I'm on one of my mentee client sites as it happens that we're running together. Super exciting 30,000 square foot office to residential conversion. If you've been watching the channel, if you haven't subscribed and hit the bell icon to follow it, we're following this build, huge build, office to resi conversion. Now I'm going to go and find Lucy Barrett from Vantage Finance. She's financed this site with us. She works with us on all our sites, going to one of the units here. You'll notice all the pink fireboarding to separate the main corridors from the building. You'll see an update video coming soon today, so watch the channel as well for that, and you'll see how the development's going. But I'm in here. Oh, hi guys, nice to see you. We've got Lucy and the film crew over here, so I'm going to hand over to you guys, and nice to see you again, Lucy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
To get my video editing skills there, hopefully they were acceptable. So we want to talk about today, valuations. Now, it's something I talk to my mentee clients about, people that come for the one-to-one mentoring. Valuations is key. When we get to that point, once we've got you through the sourcing and learning how to invest and all that kind of stuff, when you're ready to offer and get an offer agreed, we're already talking to Lucy and her team, about how to finance it, what we can get, what we think the end value is, what the exit is, and all that feeds in through the lender. The lender then presents that to the valuer. Valuer turns up on site. We have our valuation, our chat, and it goes back up the chain. There's a bit chain, isn't it? So if I'm the borrower, I always get that the wrong way around. I always still call it lender. If I'm the borrower, I present my deal to you. You present it to the bank. The bank then instructs it to the valuer. It goes all the way back round. We get a valuation. Mm-hmm. Now that's quite a lot of people in the chain. Can be Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
Presentation is key.
It's the hardest bit to control, really, as well, because
that's really spot on. Yeah.
You are outsourcing it to a third-party professional who, I suppose, if we're all honest about it, has no incentive for the deal to be done. So you get some who are what they see is what they get. They do all the work. They're really thorough, and some are knowledgeable, some aren't. So that's another variation. But some are helpful and they try and do the best that they can to make the deal work. But actually, it's not like us and the bank and we're all trying to get this deal to complete. The surveyor is just paid to do this part of the job. And unfortunately, there is a real range in skill set and personalities and all sorts.
I've like banged my head against the wall.
I know, and it's really hard because we don't.
Got it wrong.
We can make sure that we furnish them with lots of information and that we think about what things might be a problem and that we try and manage that as closely as possible. But ultimately, it's a big risk point in any transaction, because without that valuation being somewhere in the right ballpark for what we need, the whole thing falls over. And there's a misconception where we get some people say, well, it was valued 3 years ago and it valued at this. It's sort of irrelevant because it's about what's on the market now. So you could be quite unlucky, really, that there's not much by way of comparables in the last 3 or 6 months.
Yeah, we felt that recently.
We have, yeah.
In our deals down in Hampshire.
Yeah, we
got
did.
Down valued a little bit, one of them a bit more, but that was because they couldn't find the comparables. Stacked up everywhere else.
Yeah,
and the valuer wasn't prepared to go out on a limb to value it at
and often
the
they
value
won't.
We think.
Often they won't. No. And one of the challenges for valuers is that they do unfortunately know if it goes wrong that the lender will come knocking on their door.
Does that happen a lot? I mean, we talk about that as a risk. Everyone's PI insurance. That's why they are cautious in the market. Whether it's the construction people and consultants, they're being cautious, or whether it's a valuer being cautious. Does that happen? You see that happen a lot? Do you
you do.
Other cases on
you
that?
do. So it happening in scale. Not at the moment, because typically the market's quite good, the property market is quite strong. We haven't seen any, touch wood, any big recessions since the financial crisis. Obviously there was a fear that the pandemic may go that way, but thankfully it didn't, and the property market remained resilient. But in the financial crisis, where property prices were inflated and there was a big bubble, when lenders started to lose money, they absolutely did all turn on the valuers, and that obviously then has an impact on their PI and their cost to run the business. And then, unfortunately, some valuers couldn't even weather the storm of that. So it's I suppose valuers remember that. A lot of them have been around when that happened. On a smaller scale, individually, yes, lenders, if something goes wrong and the property sells for significantly less than what the valuer valued it for, and that can be for a number of reasons, and it doesn't even necessarily mean it is the market value, but it could just be timing. Sometimes it is just bad timing.
If you got repossession, gave it to an auction, that auction just flopped because there wasn't on that day enough buyers.
And I suppose that's that would always be an argument that the valuer and the PI company would try and hit back with, but sometimes it's just a complicated site and the number of buyers is fewer, or sometimes people see that it's in a distressed scenario because they know that it's a lender repossession, and that will have a bit of an impact on value as well, whereas the valuer's looking at it really depending on how they're instructed, what the market value is. So there is always a risk to valuers, and they're very cautious to preserve that PI. And I think the main question that they probably ask themselves is, why would I go out on a limb here rather than just being safe and just giving a safe number that I'm confident with? And that doesn't mean they down value. I do hear this down value term quite a lot, and we all use it quite flippantly. But how do we define a down value? Because I say something's worth X, they say it's worth Y. Has he downvalued it, or did I overinflate it? So it's clients' expectations as well as managing the valuation process are two things that we have to marry up, because some people are quite realistic and they sort of say, okay,
I'm always realistic.
You are realistic. You're optimistic realistic.
Yeah, but there's a range, isn't there?
Of course there is.
The value is probably going to end up somewhere in the middle, but if you start in the middle, you might end up at the bottom.
Yeah, and we see some bad
optimistic
valuations, which are a different topic altogether. So there's not quite achieving the figure that you want to, and there's just how have you got to this?
Yeah.
How have you got to this
Pulled
number?
out a terrible comparable down the road that it's not even the same property.
You tell me what you could buy for this
Yeah.
anywhere in a 5 to 10 mile radius. It just is not possible.
Yeah.
So we do get, unfortunately, some of those, and it's important that the valuer chosen is the right valuer for the job, because
Really true. And on bigger commercial deals, we get to choose the valuer, don't we? We often get
in most cases,
a range on
you
a
get
panel,
an option.
and we can sometimes call them up and say, look, we're looking to instruct you. You've been on our panel. What's your overall view on this site?
Yeah.
Are you reasonably positive about it? You can have an informal chat with you and get a gauge.
Yeah, if
And
you're
they know the
at
area.
the right
we did
level.
one last week there, and we would be pretty comfortable with valuing that.
Sensible lenders using big firms, reputable firms, will often be happy with you to have some selection. They're not going to say you can just go and pick any valuer.
No, of course not. They'll give you like three or four,
a range.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have a bit of confidence that they want the deal to happen. Look, ultimately,
everyone wants
it to happen
at the right level.
Of course, exactly. That's right. And
that's the battle, isn't it? That as developers or investors, we're actually we don't use the term battle, but we're always trying to push for more money because that de-risks the deal for us. If we can get a higher loan to value, the lender's trying to do the opposite. They want to give the lowest loan to value, but still get the deal.
Yeah. And we get asked a lot, well, can't we just instruct another valuer once the valuations come back? But we always try to take a balanced approach when we're explaining things to customers. And what I would say there is put yourself in the bank's shoes. You've got a professional that is on your valuation panel that has told you it's worth X, and somebody wants to instruct another valuation to see if you can get something higher. But why wouldn't you rely on what the professional that you've instructed, unless you can see a fundamental flaw with the methodology in the valuation, which does sometimes happen.
It does happen.
Yeah, it does happen. But if you can't, it's not best of three, you know. It's not let's get as many valuations. It is a shame, So
it's not rock, paper, scissors.
No,
which valuation do we take?
Exactly. They ultimately have to put their faith in the professionals to guide them. And once that valuation is in, if you can't reason with the valuer if you think that the valuation has come out wrong. Unfortunately, there's nowhere to go from there with that lender, because they cannot disregard what their professionals have told them. And there's no, well, can't they lend off of what it sold for a few years ago? No, they can't. They have to rely on what they've been told. And at that point, it's move lenders or it doesn't work, really.
I'm sure in the past we've seen lenders allow one revaluation. Has that gone out of the market? I'm sure I've had that before. I thought that was the case.
Only time that we ever see that is where we've tried to appeal a valuation and the bank has been really on board with the reasons why, and the valuer will not change their opinion. We've had it where they will allow us to have another one,
valuation.
but
it's rarer.
They don't let you just go and instruct another one if you didn't like what you saw on the first one, unfortunately.
Right, a good tip. I want to cover a couple of tips before we finish this video. One good tip is to get your own, this is what I like to do, my own valuation from an independent RICS valuer before I get the bank valuation. So it's all about preparation for evaluation. You know, like I said at the beginning, you start with the client, how I present it to you, and then the onward chain of how it gets presented and instructed. And then I would end up meeting the valuer on site anyway. It's like gone full circle, and I present that information back again at him to check that, you know, any Chinese whispers or any misinterpretation. Check, it's usually where the bank's instructed it wrong. We've had that before, because you would never present it wrong, but the bank sometimes, some admin person there whacks it on Chinese whispers, you know, bricks and mortar valuation rather than investment valuation. And the valuers turn up going, well, I thought I was doing a bricks and mortar valuation. So then I catch it at that point, get it back up the chain, speak to you, get the instruction correct, and the valuer comes through correctly. So you really need to watch out for these things. But
it's in the planning, and it's in controlling and managing the process as much as you can.
As much as you can. Being as helpful as you can.
Exactly, and we will never have complete control over it. No. But what you do have control over is, again, managing the risks. So if there's something on there that you know is a bit unusual, whether it's a planning thing, whether it's, you know,
make sure you present it properly.
Present it properly so the valuer understands it, and you explain to them how you have arrived at your numbers. That really helps. Whereas if you just give them a blank sheet of paper, you are leaving yourself more exposed.
I want 500 grand valuation.
Yeah.
He's going to go off and make up whatever he thinks.
That's it.
And preparation.
There is a bit of a myth in the market that lenders want valuers to downvalue things because
for safety,
they want, but that really isn't true. The comfort that lenders have is in their loan to value. So they're not instructing valuers to value things 5 or 10% less. I do hear that sometimes, and
I think there's an unsaid sort of thought that if you still take the deal, the lower value, the better for the lender, but they don't actively push that necessarily.
A lender, if they could have all things all their way, clearly if a valuation is conservative, it is in their best interest because it's something that mitigates some risk, but they want to do business at the end of the day. And if it stops them from doing business, that's not something that they would ever go out promoting or pushing. No. Valuers are naturally cautious. I think if you talk to an estate agent and then you talk to a valuer, they will have a difference in numbers if it's a bank instructed valuation for the reasons we talked about in terms of PI and
and estate agents can be quite bullish and want to get the listing possibly. So
they want the listing, and the
valuers are more cautious. Which is why we go optimistic. So, you know, if I can just summarise this video, and probably the top tips for this is the presentation. It's putting together a pack for the valuer. It's trying to control that process as much as possible. I do a pre-valuation, so I often, and I've made ones that have got downvalued, as we know, one in Reading recently got downvalued. We had to go to, I think, a different lender, a different valuer, one of the two. And we did a pre-valuation before we went to that second valuer. So I ended up with 3 valuations. First one downvalued. The second one valued up fine because I did a pre-valuation and handed them that pre-valuation from another RICS surveyor. So not just estate agents' views, which you should get as well. Get a pack of 3 or 4 estate agents' views on the rents, the end values, all at the optimistic end. And if you can get a pre-valuation that, you know, is also within the bounds of what you're looking at, hand all that to the valuer on the day of the valuation and talk to him about how you've arrived.
And you personally hand it to them as well. You go to the valuation. Don't just let the agent. Don't just let the agent let them in. That's a big mistake.
100%. You can talk them through the site. You can sell it. You sell the positives of the site, why it's a low risk site. Get them on board with your vision. they're more likely to go back and support it, I guess.
Completely. They still need to make sure that the market supports the numbers, but they're armed with the information then. You're making it easy for them to find the information, and I think that avoids certain things being missed. Because once a valuer's put pen to paper, it's very difficult
really
to get
hard.
them to change their mind. Even if there's a part of them that thinks, actually, I can see that, it's an integrity and a credibility issue that they don't want to have to go back to the lender and say, I've made a mistake on the valuation and I think it should be higher, because also there's the risk that they fear the lender might think that they've been talked up, when actually it's just a case of they've missed something. They're nervous to turn around and say, actually, I've changed my value in an upward direction.
Preparation, and this all comes from experience, you know. If you don't have the experience of this stuff, I'm open to some mentorship. I teach my mentees how to prepare for valuations. We go through all those documents. We go through every single nuance that we're discussing here and on some of the other finance videos. Huge amounts of nuance in every stage of the finance process and the development and investment acquisition process. So if you'd like to get a finance quote from Lucy, please check out her details below this video, and watch out, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, and watch some of the other videos Lucy and I have done on finance. Hopefully we will teach you a few of the nuances that we've learned over the 20 plus years of investing and working together for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, something along those. Time flies, doesn't it?
Long time, yeah.
Long time. But yeah, Lucy does all our deals, so reach out to her if you've got a requirement for finance. See you on another video very soon.